How do you deliver value as a customer success manager?
Yes, it's like the $1,000,000 question. Always be looking for champions. Go be with your customers. Take them to dinner. Go have a coffee. Go meet with them at their office. I had that strong personality, but I just made myself small. I would never share an idea, and I definitely didn't want to be in the spotlight. I have great ideas in my head, and then someone else would raise the idea. Oh, I wanted to die when that would happen.
How to succeed in a corporate America?
Liking what you do or finding something that you like to do, leveraging your network, being super intentional and thoughtful about making the contact with people, trying to add value. Kind of like it's critical. It's absolutely critical. The part that I was the most successful at and that I enjoyed was cultivating the relationships that I already had. So it was an amazing, unique opportunity.
63% of tech leaders say that improving customer success is among their most important priorities for 2023. Low churn, good retention, lots of upsells and cross-sells is the strategy that many of Belkins clients employed in 2023. Why? Have you seen the cost of new clients acquisition? It's skyrocketing high. It doesn't mean that you need to stop investing into marketing and new sales. No, it means that customer success is the cost-effective strategy for new revenue generation. Today, I'm joined by Cinthia Silva, customer success manager for NASDAQ and a business strategist. Today, we talked all about customer success, how to deliver value as CSM, how to win champions, and build the joint success plan. This episode is a bit technical, but I promise you, like with every episode in this season, it will lead you to growth. Okay? Now, thank you and enjoy the episode. I've checked, and about 50% of our current clients had informed us that for this quarter and for last quarter, they primarily focused on retaining their customers and growing their current relationships, right? They didn't want to do a lot of acquisition. They optimized their marketing budgets and they put all that budget into their customer success team and into retaining and growing their current accounts. And we even lost a few customers that said, "Hey, sorry guys, we just really wanted to push for our existing businesses. We're not looking for new clients at this point." Obviously, because the sales cycle are longer and because companies are saving on some of those budgets. So I was thinking, hey, I should talk about this with Cynthia on this podcast, considering your background and considering your current role as a customer success, right?
Yeah, sounds great. Sounds
Yeah.
good. I like it. I like it.
Oh,
Now, I
awesome.
think your
Yeah. So
conversations with your clients are the same as a lot of others. So there you go.
absolutely right. So tell me this: how should companies approach customer success if they decided to kind of focus more in that direction? Although they had that, but now they say, "Hey, this is our priority at this point." How should they? What they should they? How does it actually work?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, I think that in terms of implementing customer success programs, it's usually more like the C-suite will say, "Hey, we're a SaaS business. We should probably have, or we have like a subscription service. We should probably have customer success." That's what happens a lot, and they're like, "Let's hire people and let's start it." Unfortunately, that happens a lot. But I think like a better approach would be to say, "Let's look at our customer base." Right? I think you're absolutely right. Like wanting to retain customers is always something that companies are looking to do, but especially now with the economy so shaky. So one of the first things I would definitely recommend, and things that we look at on an ongoing basis, are things like customer segmentation. So look at your existing book of business, right, and say, okay, where do our customers fall? Like what verticals do they fall in? What sort of groups do we have? And then how do we want to serve them? And there's a lot of discussion right now in customer success too about digital frameworks and how to scale teams and how to scale the way that we interact with our customers. And so essentially you need to look at, obviously which is closest to your ICP, your ideal client profile, and they're going to probably get like a more higher touch experience because, they're probably your largest customers that can benefit the most and where the most growth opportunities are. And then from there, you'll need to kind of segment them through to look at, and I think a lot of times it's based on ARR, which I get it. The clients that pay the most are typically probably in the ICP, but not always. So you need to see where they fall with the ARR and also with the vertical itself and also the use case. And again, it depends as well and the complexity of the solution. If your solution was widgets, this might not be such a hard exercise. If you have a more complex solution or anything in between, you really need to look at those, scenarios to first of all decide how you want to reach out to the customer, what kind of a blend you want to have, high, mid to low touch, digital touch. I think digital could work across all of the verticals, really. But that's like the starting point, and then you bring CSMs to say, hey, these are some of the ways we want to start engaging with the customers, and then look at different strategies and tactics from there.
Typically, when I'm thinking about like, hey, focusing on customer success, again, to bring more revenue to the organization, I'm thinking about two different options. Either I'm going horizontally and I say, hey, I'm trying to cross sell and add other products to an existing customer, or another option, I'm like, hey, I wanted that one customer to pay more for the services that we already have in that lane, so they can upgrade the packages, et cetera, et cetera. Um, so obviously I cannot do both at the same time, right? So, in your opinion, what should I focus first, right? Should I cross sell my existing customers with the new product, or try to upsell them for the existing products, just for for kind of more revenue that I can generate for you?
Oh, it's like the $1,000,000 question, isn't it? Right? Because you're right. There are it's like expansion or cross sell, and ideally both, right? But you're
Right,
right. You don't want to. You want to have your activities focused, and I think that's such a good question because I think when you're talking about your ICPs, those are the kind of clients that they're so perfect for you. They're so right, the right fit that they would probably first of all, you're probably looking at ways to expand and having conversations with them to learn more about their broader business goals, which quite frankly every CSM should be doing with every client to just try to have not just are you using all the features, what's kind of a longer vision outside of even what we do, so you see where you fit and where you can grow. But particularly with the ICP, if they're perfect for us, our cross sell solutions are probably going to be a good fit. And if not for this our specific contact or stakeholder, it could be for a related one. So I think that for the ICPs, the cross sells actually probably make the most sense. And then for everyone else, you want to, like, again, as you kind of scale down from the perfect customer to like farther away from the ICP, you want to have those conversations, asking about their broader business goals, what they're looking to accomplish, and then obviously also internally wanting to make sure that your CSMs know, well, what are the other products in the basket, in the portfolio solutions? Sometimes that's tricky because there could be dozens, right? And so what are, then you have to
right.
kind of focus, what are the top 3 to 5 that would be, like the sweet spot and cross-sell opportunities, and then expand from there.
Explain me this. When clients say, hey, I wanted to focus more budget into customer success, I wanted to streamline the revenue in there because I think that that's going to bring us more success right now. What do they actually mean? What do I spend money on customer success besides the, having the team, having all the tools? Are there any sort of like promotions or some things that you can do with customers, spend money on that, and that it can bring you more business? Some kind of like ABM type of success campaign or something?
I love that ABM success campaign. I like that. Um, well, no, that's actually a great question. And I think a lot of times when clients say that, when they say, or like companies say that, they're like, hey, we want to focus all of our revenue activities with the CSM, is because there's a lot of overlap between account management and CSM. And depending on the size or stage of the company, you could be wearing multiple hats because, with the startup, I've been there, you've worn the different hats. And so you're doing a lot more. And then when you start kind of progressing through the different stages of company growth, it starts to get a little bit more individualized. A lot of the situations I've seen where there's that conversation about let's focus CS, and put budget in there for them to take on the, like the renewals, upsells, cross sells, are when there is a lot of overlap with the AM. And really the whole point of customer success is to add value. That's like we always say that, how do we add value? How do we add value? And obviously you want to be that a strategic, consultative advisor to them. And I think because we, CSMs try to stay close to the clients, understand, how our solutions fixing their immediate problems, and then also looking at the broader goals. that's owning a lot of the relationship. We're understanding a lot about that relationship. And as long as we're documenting that in a CRM somewhere and looking at the trends and analysis, we can really really have our finger on the pulse in terms of where that white space is, and also where the sweet spots are in terms of how to serve clients. If something's working for one client, it's 9 times out of 10, it's going to work for everyone else in that vertical. So
Right.
that's where I think that kind of comes to play.
All right. Are there any, let's say, budget budget needed campaigns or initiatives that CSMs can utilize to increase the retention, or it's a purely one-to-one work with the customer? Or in your experience, have you guys done something? Maybe some of your folks from your from your network have done some kind of paid campaigns to be able to engage customers more. Um, I'm just thinking, hey, maybe like on-site visits, just flying over to client office, working with them, working on that kind of joint success plan with them, taking them out for a restaurant for a dinner. I don't know, like anything that I can spend my money on with CSM team to be able to kind of work on that retention.
Oh my goodness. First of all, I love where your head's at because I think that is that now that we can be together in real life, yes, go be with your customers. Take them to dinner, go have a coffee, go meet with them at their office, invite them to your office if you're in the same city. I love all those things. And that's a way I think honestly, when it's like strategic clients, it's money well spent. But I also think other ways to leverage budgets would be to partner with, like the marketing team, because they have like ABM strategies. And so essentially they're great partners, and it's a great way to share knowledge, resources, and also share wins internally. Because part of the thing with
Right.
customer success, you want to like it's everybody's or one of the things we like to say is customer success is a company goal, right? So we need to work together. That's a great way to collaborate. A good starting point is with marketing. And also too, I think one of the other ways is like a way that's becoming much more popular, and I think it's going to continue to be popular, is the leveraging of communities. So if you establish communities on a knowledge base or something like that, where your clients can speak with each other and like say, hey, can have webinars on there, share like whatever like new information about features or Q&As, FAQs, all those things. I think that's really going to be a great tool, and I think it's going to continue to grow because clients always want to know what their competitors are doing. What are the best practices? And that's a way that they can engage together.
Right. Hey, I wanted us to go back for a second. You mentioned that. And I didn't think that there's a difference. Like you mentioned, there is account managers and there are customer success managers. So what's the difference? I always thought that it's one role. It's just some people are calling account managers, some calling our CSM, or these are totally different functionalities that those folks do.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy you said that because yeah, there's a lot of confusion. There really is. So again, I mean, there's a lot of overlap, but really they're two different roles. And it really depends on the structure of the company, the stage, and the complexity of a product. And I'll tell you why. So account managers oftentimes are looking at retention. They're definitely focused on renewals, and they're definitely looking at expansions. And really,
Right.
so are CSMs. Now, so I think it really depends on again like the size of the company, complexity of the product in particular. Because if you have a more complex product, then you like with the CSM could be more of the subject matter expert. So they're delivering value in that way, and then gaining insights and can get like just dig a little deeper in terms of like the get into the weeds with the customers in terms of like the solution and the sort of things that they're trying to establish from a technical perspective. They can do that,
Hmm.
but they could also still do renewals as well. And I think on the account
Right.
management side, it's typically aligned with the sales team, and it would do those things. But again, it would normally not have anything to do with any sort of like really subject matter expertise. They'd bring someone else in for that.
Right. Should I have a certain ACV or certain revenue or size in my organization to be able to have both account managers and CSMs? When should I start bringing on CSMs into the
Yeah,
wheelhouse?
that's such a great question. I think, with startups, I think wearing of the different hats is really the way to go. You have to, like if you can find people that can pretty much do it all, become the evangelist
Right.
for your product, go deep on the product, be able to engage with the client, understand how to have those discovery calls with them to really uncover what their longer term goals and how they're leveraging your tools for use cases and things you can share with marketing. And then as you continue to grow, I mean, I think it's a great question about the ACV. I mean, I guess it really just depends because, there could be a very simple product that costs, the ARR is something like, I don't know, 10,000, and there's other,
Right.
ARR that's 100,000 a year. So what's the break there? And I think that
Yeah.
it would be, as we like to say in CS, it depends.
Let's talk about people behind the process, who the CSMs are, and I specifically wanted to dig deep into your own transition, right? Because you transitioned from sales into customer success not that long ago, and although in customer success you need to know how to sell, right? Like it's a sales job as well, right? You always
Yes.
present yourself, your organization, you build the relationships like you do in sales. However, you also need to have a different set of skills, right? So how did you approach the transition from a learning standpoint? Who guided you and what helped you in that sort of like discovery phase?
Yeah, that's such a great question. Yeah, the bulk of my career has been in sales, and really, when I pivoted, this my current role at Nasdaq is my first pivot to CS, and also I was brought in to help launch the team. So it was an amazing, unique opportunity, and really, a couple things. What really kind of caused me to make that switch was, I've been dealing with customers, again for the bulk of my career, love to build the relationships, and what I noticed, the part that I was the most successful at and that I enjoyed was cultivating the relationships that I already had. Because I like to have those conversations. I like to get in the weeds with the customers. And then I like to deliver for them while managing their expectations. I never promise anything I can't deliver. And that's like a faux pas in sales. Never, never do that. And so as I was, like with tech and like all this craziness of pandemic and, being locked down. Remember lockdown? How crazy was that? All the different changes. I actually started leveraging communities myself, so I'm part of sales, marketing, and CS communities to just say, hey, how is everybody adapting in this environment so that, obviously you can position yourself to win wherever you are. And the more I started engaging with these communities in CS, I was like, you know what? I think the post-sale motion is where I will have the runway to develop those relationships. And again, I think it was, I can't remember who it was. I was at a webinar and it was talking about the sales funnel, not just a funnel, it's a bow tie. And so the funnel comes in, but the growth is on the other side. It's that expansion, cross-sell, upsell, and keeping customers, with us. And so that's really what caused me to make that decision. And by leveraging the different communities, following the thought leaders on LinkedIn, reading books, going to webinars, and I still do that, by the way. I still do it because what I found was, you start to, once you start, reading content and following thought leaders, you start to recognize what the trends are, the things that are important, and then I thought about how it would relate to me with my experience, and it was completely transferable. And so when I made my transition and came to ultimately to Nasdaq, that's question everybody I talked to said, well, why from sales to this? Why do you want to do it? And it was that ability to have that play that long game with the client, and my skills are 100% transferable. We've had a lot of success since I've been able to kind of implement some of my ideas.
Hey, can you give me one or two shocking learnings that you kind of discovered only after you've done the transition?
Shocking learnings. Oh well, that's a loaded question. Let me think about this. Well, you know what? Ultimately, I don't know how shocking it is, but I think it was a reminder to me. I found this at small companies and at big companies, but when especially launching a new team like the customer success team, trying to get alignment across the different teams, was surprising, how hard it can be sometimes because you really do have to take the time. You have to play the long game on that,
Yeah.
to kind of have people understand what the role was something new. Like, okay, this is what we're meant to do. There was a lot of confusion, kind of what you asked about, Michael, about and what's the difference between
Mhm.
AM and a CSM? Where do you come in? That was sort of like that was kind of took me back, but that was like Perfect. This is what you do when you're in sales. You multi-thread accounts. You're having
Right.
different stakeholders and champions throughout the company. And that's exactly what, I just stepped, it took me back by surprise for a second. And I'm like, wait a minute. And it was about when someone was confused or when we were looking at ways to kind of expand certain programs to help launch the CSM team. It was a lot about internal education that we wanted to translate, have a consistent message for the external client. So I don't know if that was shocking because there's silos everywhere, unfortunately. But I was
Yeah,
definitely wanting to put my sales hat back on.
but that's so important. I again, I wanted to highlight this that cross-functional communication is one of the most important things right now ever. Like I've talked with several executives and they all hands-on said that if they wanted to do something differently, if they go back in their early days, that they would work on their cross-functional communication. Cross-functional communication, that's something that my team is working on right now. Our newly appointed HRD came in and said, "Hey guys, I see that you guys there's a lack of cross-functional communication between the different leaders within the organization, within different departments. That's something you need to work on, and this is so important. And without it, you cannot be efficient, right, with the way you build your go-to market, right, in any way, shape, or form. So I think that it's so interesting that you brought it up because at the end of the day, it's so basic, right? It's like, yeah, it's obvious, but it's so shocking because like you don't necessarily think about that on a daily basis, especially when you're hands-on working on this. She's like, hey, am I good in the cross-functional communication actually, right? Or I suck at it. So
Yes. Well, no, it's a really good point because you're right. You think you're like, hey, I'm communicating with everybody, but if you really, it's like any sort of change management, which is also in CSM's wheelhouse of like trying to get customers to adopt. You need internal players to adopt too. And how do you do that? It's you're the one that needs to kind of extend that line of communication, bring them in, and also be willing to do the dirty work because sometimes it really is like I've done a ton. Like I used to say, God, I hate data, but I love insights. So, it's about getting into CRM and
right.
pulling down those
Yeah.
reports, right? And saying, well, hey, I see white space here. What about maybe resegmenting in this way or that way? And when you start talking like that, you're going to get the attention of marketing and sales, and they're going to want to share those wins. And it's great to share wins. It doesn't have to be just about you. That's how you get things done.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also think that again, we say communication, but it's actually collaboration, right? It's about how many projects I have with that team or that team. Do I have anything, or I'm working in a closed loop environment, right? Like I'm closed up from them. So if I'm in sales, how many projects I have with collaborating with marketing or with customer success or with the development or with the product team? Do I have ongoing? If I don't have, then wait, here there's a problem, right? We should work on and there's so many things that we can work on. So let's create some collaborations between those departments, right? Hey, so to move on, I saw an interesting post that you did probably, I think, a month ago or so, a month ago, and you open up with this question that I wanted to us to ponder on for a second here. You said that how do you deliver value as a customer success manager? And I love that. It's a great question. How do you deliver value, right? So this is my question to you, Cynthia. How do you deliver value as a customer success manager?
Oh yes, it's like the $1 million question, and there's not just one way to do it, but it's so important. And the number one thing when you ponder that question is not what I think value is, what the customer thinks value is, what's valuable to them, and that's why like you mentioned, joint success plans critical discovery calls when you're first starting with them. I can actually consider every call with the customer a discovery call, quite frankly. Like what's happening, what's changed since the last time we spoke. But things like joint success plans are a great way to say, hey, here we are. You've done, the team's gotten up to speed with our solution. You've done this or that, these sort of things. What are you looking at for the next quarter? What are some of the value milestones? What are the things you want to achieve? And agree with it together. And then once you make that agreement, and then you share it, and then you monitor it, and then at the next joint success, whatever it's at a quarter or half year, however it might be, depending on the client, then you can say, hey, look at these things we accomplished. That's like a great way to just, you've established them and you've hit them. Or if you haven't, you both know why, because you've been in communication with them. Like
Mhm.
that's like one of the best ways to deliver value. But also too, think about it. If there's been a feature, the update that's really specific to a customer, customize it to some extent. And again, depending on your book of business, you can't customize as much. It might need to be scaled customization, which sounds like an oxymoron, but
Right.
like it might help a whole vertical. Tell them, but something very specific. If there's a white paper that you think would be interesting that your company's released, don't dump the white paper on them. Say, pull out a paragraph or sentence. Say, hey, I saw this in the white paper we just released. I thought this is interesting. Let me know if you want the whole white paper. I'll send it to you. Those sort of things where you're like looking at them and they're feeling like they're being seen, like you're not just like auto generating something like that has nothing to do with them. That's how you deliver value. And that's when clients reach out to you like proactively to say, hey, there's been a change. Can we get a training session for this person, or can we get them credentials to get to your knowledge base? Oh, by the way, we're entering new markets. Can we talk about that? Ding it for me, ding, 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 ding. That's an opportunity where I'm going to bring my account manager in, or our salesperson in, to talk about those upsells, cross sells.
Mm. So when we talk about the joint success plan, what is that? Is that like a one pager with like a checklist, or it's a report, it's a presentation, it's an email? So if I am a certain customer success team leader and we don't have that joint success plan in motion right now, so where do I start from, and then how would that look, that kind of final product?
Oh, yeah. See, now I'm personally a fan of the one pager. That's me. However, it can be more complex because if you've got an enterprise account, if you've got like an account that's very complex, that's leveraging numerous aspects and projects, that could be more pages and that could be more deeper data sets. So I don't want to say no to decks. And again, for more enterprise complex clients. However, for your mid to, SMB to mid tier clients, those sort of things, I say a one pager. And maybe if it spills into two pages, that's fine. I know I'm leveraging one right now that Jan Young actually shared. I think she shared it with everybody on her CS office hours. But basically, it's like a one pager it's a matrix. It's just saying like, here's the stakeholders that everybody they're going to talk to. Here's like the areas that you like, maybe milestones, and then like some outcomes, some risks, timelines, and then you send it to the client ahead of the joint success plan so they can see it. Here's this one pager. This is what I want to talk to you about the meeting. So you're not just hitting them cold. Now, hopefully they've looked at it. If they didn't, it doesn't matter. At least you are transparent. But then you have like a very, very defined, kind of outline that you at least started, and then you just go through it with them. These are the things that I thought, does that align? Did I miss anything? Should we tweak something? Again, that's where people come together. And when there's that level of coordination and thought ahead of time, clients like that. They're like, okay, you're trying to help me succeed, especially if you're a leader. Like, how can we get everybody on the team to kind of succeed? Is this plan going to help my team get there? Who's going to say no to that? And then again, that's how again, with a very defined, template starting point, that's really, I think, the way to uncover what's important to the customer. I mean, in the end, you might want to use have things. I think you're going to want to have things in your back pocket too, like usage data, because I think the usage data it's mostly about us, like, hey, we
Right.
didn't use it enough. But if the team leader might say, hey, I want to see, because if someone's struggling, that's an opportunity to train. Let's figure that out. So like, you want to have certain things like that, other metrics, in the back pocket. But I think the one pagers are a great starting point.
Yeah. So on the top, just to summarize, you have stakeholders, then you have milestones, then you have outcomes. What do I include? What else?
Like potential risks or whatever, or like roadblocks, right?
Okay.
Because like maybe
Roadblocks.
they want to have like yeah, so it'd be
Hmm.
like something like they want to accomplish something that might take like 3 to 6 or 9 months, but they have their own rollout that's happening. Is that going to be a roadblock like during that time
Yeah.
frame? Like let's adjust for it. What can we do up to that point, and then when that happens, what can we do around that point? So it's just sort of like, or the roadblock could be someone just left, right? We're waiting to hire somebody. So those sort of things that kind of take into account. And then that gives you, I mean, it's gold for both the customer and yourself, because now you've got like, more insight into what's important to them.
Hey, so you mentioned expectations, and this is something that I know my team struggles a lot because when you have that joint success plan, there's always some expectations from client. Hey, this is something that we expect, etc. But then those expectations are very sometimes they're just taken out of the sky, or let's say they're very. Let's say that differently. They're very opportunistic or inspirational, right? Like, hey, we want that, right? That not necessarily need to be a reality. So do you have any tips for customer success managers, those that wanted to manage customer expectations? Um, what recommendation would you give them?
Oh my goodness. That is such a great question, Michael, because managing expectations is the number one thing, not just CSMs, SDRs, sales, marketing, everybody, anyone who's facing a customer should be definitely, not over promising for sure. And you're right. Customers will be like, I want blah, 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 blah. It doesn't exist. Like, and on it, you really do have to just like listen. I always like
Right,
write things down, like what, like this, just even for myself, for my CRM notes, like they want it, blah, blah,
right,
blah, blah. Oh my God. And I'll just say, got it. Listen, that's not something we have available, that, or that's not going to be possible right now, or that's not something that usually happens. Because
right,
sometimes too, like a customer who is, at a really basic plan
r-
might want a really premium option. And it's like, well, if you paid 10 times as much, you might be able to get access to
right,
XYZ, right? And that might not
right,
make sense for their day-to-day business. So you do have to be able to push back, but in a professional way. This is a business conversation. I think sometimes people mix up relationship management with friends. You know what I mean? And not that I'm not friends with so many of my clients. Well, I know many, many wonderful clients that I do consider friends, but it's still a business conversation. And the worst thing you can do is to say, oh yeah. No, just say, that's if you know something's absolutely not possible, just squash it there, but in a very professional manner. It's just something that's not available. I'll make a note of this because you never know. If enough people request it, maybe the product team would launch the XYZ, whatever it might be. But at this stage, no. Or maybe it's something that you do know internally they are considering, saying like this stage is not available, but let me bring it up, because it's just something that we can feedback, we can share with our team. That's a way you can kind of diffuse it while still saying no. Because if you say maybe or probably, or you know what I mean,
right.
like we've done stuff like this before, just be super super careful, because it's better to come back later and say, by the way, that thing that's possible now.
Yeah, yeah. So true. Um, I know that my team to retain some of those strategic Rest accounts, they always have I would say like a champion within the organization. And I know you wrote about it as well, right? And I wanted to bring this up just to emphasize on the importance of having that champion within the client organization and trying to win that, right? So the question to you, so in your terminology, who is that champion from the client's end, and then how do you win one? And how do you win one?
Oh, yeah. First of all, we should all be looking for champions at every single account, and not just one. This goes back to multi-threading, right? We want to find, because what if our champion leaves? Oh, our champion's now gone, right? So number one, always be looking for champions. And number two, multiple champions if you can. If it's a small account, sometimes that's not possible. But for me, the starting point for identifying champions is, who are the super users? Who are the ones that are like leveraging the tools, they're adopting, that's like I start
Right.
with usage, start with the data, right? Like, okay, and then talk to them. And then ultimately what you want to do is work closely with them, understand again what they're, not just what the goals are in terms of them being able to use the solution to its full potential, which of course you want, but also, hey, would you be interested in, we're doing a webinar, or we're doing a panel, would you maybe want to be on that panel? And again, this would have to be probably somebody who, at a specific level, each company can determine that. That's like a way to develop champions, because you're creating visibility for those people. Do you want to get access? We're doing beta testing on this new UI. You know what I mean? You and the team want to do that? Giving, people love to have first access, right? And again, very, very strategic, right? So it's like, we're looking at the data of their super users, we're looking maybe at the ICPs and then kind of moving down. And I think it needs to be sort of a sliding scale of things, because maybe at the smallest account, you don't necessarily want to offer like a panel role, right? Or a beta testing, but maybe you would, because maybe that's like the least riskiest client that might make the new beta or the new UI might fit for. But you have to be creative in that respect, because if you create visibility, and you create access. Those are really, really good starting points. And also, too, the hidden benefit of champions as well. If you are launching a community for your users, those super users, they can get first access to that and start talking to each other. Oh my God, who doesn't want first access to that and to other clients and help build something, right? And they're the ones that you can start, like, again, if you have your community, they're the ones that can start engaged, because you don't want the community, if no one's on it, it's dead, right? But if you've got your super users writing comments or sharing, best practices, whatever it is, and they're happy because they got first access and maybe they've got a little input, all sorts of things. That's how you can start. But it's very, very basic. Start with the data.
True. Yeah. Um, it's interesting. One of the posts I remember that stuck with me was that you wrote that, hey, you have that champion within the organization. They like, they're raving fans. You have a great relationship. They're supporting you, etc. But that sometimes those champions are leaving the organization, right? So you don't have that supporter anymore. And very often you kind of rely only on that champion to help you to retain those accounts, right? Um, so question is, and again, you've mentioned this already in that post, but I wanted listeners to have an opportunity just to have a thought about this as well and just think about this. So although I have a champion in the organization, how should I build the relationship, and what kind of engagement should I have with other stakeholders or with other users that are in that process, not just the champion, not to make the mistake, putting all eggs into one basket, right?
Yeah, oh, it's critical. It's absolutely critical. Well, two things. And when a champion leaves, it could be, and you only had the one, it could be horrible unless they go to another company and then they champion your product. That's the
Right.
long-term benefit of a champion, by
Yeah.
the way, because that happens. And that's amazing. All of a sudden, you've got like a new business that you didn't do anything because you've already done the stuff on the other side.
Right.
However, if that's the only one, you're really in a bind. So really, while you're developing, when you identify, let's say, the super users, and this can be tricky because at small accounts, maybe there is just one user. Then you're really like that's like a quandary that is hard to do. But if there's more than one user, if there's like 2 or 3 or whatever, while you're engaging with your super user, always include the others. Like, right, like, hey, we're rolling out this new UI. Do you want a demo? I'd love the team to have it. Can we get Joni too? Joni and Johnny or whoever it is. Let's get them all in, because if they start to feel included, then I think that becomes more, like a bigger issue. And then also too, if there's events that we're hosting, don't just invite your champion, invite the others, and make sure to engage all of them. So I think it really just becomes about inclusion. And I think the limits are, again, I think the only roadblocks I've seen in that instance is if the teams are just so small. If there's just one, you're sort of stuck. And I would focus on it. But if you have like larger teams, again, if you're dealing with enterprise accounts, it could be teams of 20, 30, many more. I would hone in on 3 to 5 at that place, because it gets too exhausting. Because if you really are trying to personalize that contact, it could be too hard unless you have like really good notes.
Yeah. So true. Hey, I wanted to talk next about you. So you started your career in banking at KeyBank, then you went for work for Wells Fargo, then you moved to IQPS, then IHS Market, then Spire. Now you're at Nasdaq. So the question is, and it's a tricky one, but I think you would love that. How how to succeed in a corporate America? Because you've succeeded.
Oh, that's a loaded question. Or how to survive. No, teasing, teasing.
Okay.
I like your frame better. I like succeed better. Yeah, it's interesting because I've worked at a lot of big companies, and I have had peppered some startups in there too. Honestly, I was just talking about this with my boss yesterday. I think earlier in my career, I was really wanted to stay under the radar. I mean, I was working at big banks, and it's very, there's a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of silos, and I was really just under the radar. And it was I just got so lucky that people took me under their wings and kind of became mentors that I didn't ask for. I was like, thank God, to help me, kind of navigate the job and corporate life. What I would do now for sure is actively look for mentors and internal sponsors that can help you grow in your career. People that, because you'd be very, very surprised. Like I tried to keep myself small and I missed many opportunities because I'm certain that there are a lot of people that want to help others. As you move through your career, you learn a lot, you make a lot of mistakes, you have a lot of successes. And when there are people like early in their journey, you want to share that knowledge with them. So you in your journey, as you, and it doesn't even matter what stage you're in your career, I think
Right.
actively looking for mentors and I have mentors and sponsors, and I hire coaches, all those things. I think that's the way that you're first of all going to get the confidence. You're going to get
Right.
the right guidance, and you're going to get the confidence, and you're going to have the knowledge. And again, through communities too. Like I don't care what sector you're in. I guarantee you, there's a community. Absolutely. And you go into that community, you're going to find people just like you. So the same challenges, the same successes, or the same things, successes you want to have. So I think it's ultimately, I guess, really, it's so simple: leveraging your network, being super
Mhm.
intentional and thoughtful about making the contact with people, trying to add value,
Mhm.
kind of like we are talking about it. So like, connecting with others and expanding your network is very much
Yeah.
like, finding champions, cultivating champions. How can you deliver value to them, right? If you see an event you think they might like, tell them about it. You see a blog that they might like, or an article, send it to them. And that's how you kind of exchange that value, and people want to start working with you. And as a result, what I have found is that when you are so intentional and you're like curious and you soak it in and you support others, if somebody's at a webinar, I'm going to attend that webinar if I can make it. I'm going to do all those things, and they're going to do that for me. And you're going to get the most interesting people are going to invite you to work on interesting projects, and you're going to have many, many more opportunities. So I think for corporate America, or any company, for just personal upskilling, there's so many opportunities, but it starts with you. You're the only one. Like, you have to just like step out. And again, it's so easy to just be small, but you're never going to have a fulfilled life. And all the money in the world isn't going to make you happy unless you're really, really seeking your passion, fulfilling it, and really engaging with other people in that way. Because you're going to get the best opportunities that way. I guarantee it.
Your early career versus your current yourself. How do you differently approach your positions right now, your responsibilities? Anything you would kind of anything you could think and then kind of go back to the early days and say, hey, this is what I done differently versus here's how things should be done now.
Hmm. Well, yeah. Oh gosh, yeah. Well, early in my career, I definitely was very afraid to share ideas. You'd be very surprised because people are like, "Oh my God, you're such a strong personality." I'm like, I had that strong personality, but I just made myself small. I would never share an idea, and I definitely didn't want to be in the spotlight. And I think I missed some opportunities because I had some people that would have definitely like wanted to help me see them, come to light. And then certain instances they're not. So I think the biggest thing that I've learned, and where I've succeeded the most in any given role, was the leaders. And this is a tough one, Michael, because how do you interview for a good leader? I'm still trying to figure that out, because a middle manager a guy who just wants to be in charge versus a leader who elevates the team, who like wants people who are different, with different opinions, with different ideas, lets you take a risk. That is where you're going to propel yourself. Like, it's a tough one. And this is why internal, like, mentors and internal sponsors are important, because you'll start to see that in once you start having those conversations where you're feeling empowered, you'll start noticing who those people are at work or in communities or things of that sort. But that's what I think I wish I'd leveraged more, was first of all, not being afraid. Just raise your hand and share your idea. I wouldn't do it. I would not do it. I have great ideas in my head, and and then someone else would raise the idea. Oh, I wanted to die when that would happen. And it happened a lot. And so whose fault is that? Right here. I own it. But now, no way. And again, I have a great leader now. So it's easy, because, when someone really just lets you, kind of try things out, you can have a lot of successes. And when you have a miss, it's not about, it's like, what could we do different? Can we salvage that? Or what was off? Let's do it again a different way. Or let's not do it again. It didn't make sense. Move on. Next idea. So I think those are the biggest things that I would recommend, because you're going to have a more satisfying career.
So something that I wanted to get clarity from, and I think you're a great recipient for kind of to sit down with me and just discuss this. So I heard a lot of different talks about corporate America being bad. It's like, yeah, it's not the best place right now. There's a lot of people that are carriers. There's a lot of there's not a lot of inclusivity in the workspace, et cetera, et cetera. There's so many like negatives, right? But at the same time, I have a feeling that it's a great platform for professional growth, right? So again, you've been on both sides. You work with startup, you work with both with bigger companies, right? You know this. So tell me, like, what is negative or what's not working well for corporate America, and then what works really well. So maybe people that are currently listening to this and are considering, hey, here's this big company, they gave me a good offer, but for my career growth, etc., should I go to work for that smaller company or for that bigger company? And what are the different cons and pros for that?
Oh, God, that's such a great question, and it's a tough one. I don't know if I have the right answer, but here's what I think. I would say that during the interview process, this is crucial. During the interview process, ask the hard questions. Definitely
Mhm.
ask the hard questions because I think and if your triggers are inclusivity, DEI, or diversity, or whatever it might be, whatever, ask the question, say, hey, like, what percentage of people here are of color, right? Like, or maybe it's on the website, and ask them why. But then be prepared, like you could have a mixed bag, but that's a great way um, to kind of vet out, to vet a company that maybe is not a right fit for you. Because I think that in corporate America, well, actually, in corporate America, it's not just big companies. I feel like a lot of these startups that get a lot of this funding, they can have their own toxic culture, and we've seen it with all of these layoffs. The money ran out, and they just got rid of whole teams. So there's really not as much safety as sometimes people think, even though there's such growth potential. Although I love startups, I think I have many people who work at them and are super happy working on many interesting projects. Um, but on the flip side of like large companies or corporations, I think they struggle. I think they struggle with things like inclusivity, but I do think there's a genuine interest to improve that. For whatever reason, and it doesn't matter. Maybe it's self-serving reasons, or maybe they really do just they care about their employees and they want their employees to feel heard. And so, one of the ways that, or some of the ways that I've seen have been, they have those employee resource groups, the ERGs. So we have them at NASDAQ. It's for like Latinos. I'm a part of that. For women, I'm part of that. Black, LGBTQ, all sorts of the military, all sorts of, like, you honestly join those. Like, if you're not sure, or you're thinking like, hey, what, be a part of it, because I think sometimes people sit on the sidelines and they're like, this company's not inclusive, but they don't do anything. They're not leveraging that. And I think that, and if you join a company, they don't have it, ask to make it. Say, hey, you know what? I would love to have, can we do an ERG? Can we set something up where people just like me, can get together and talk about our challenges and ways that we can succeed here? I can't think of a company that would say no to that, especially if you're bringing it up. But I think unfortunately, and I've done it too. I've complained about, oh God, that's this or that. But you have to be part of the change. You do. If
Mhm.
you really want to, if something is important to you and you feel like it's missing, then initiate it, or become, or be a part of it and help uplift the programs that already exist.
Last time we had a chat, we discussed that we should talk about kind of again your transition, but not from the standpoint of going to customer success, but also from the standpoint of like you know looking for a new company with regards to like all this change that's happening in the market with this massive layoff, etc. People are not sure what their next profession going to be, what they can do, finding the new role, etc. Right. So first off, I think maybe you can share with me like first, if I'm concerned that I have my job, but hey, can I be laid off or am I next or etc. So the question is, what should I do not to be that person that gets laid off, right? Is there anything that I should kind of look at, think about that, to ensure that I'm not the guy going out?
Oh yeah. Oh, it's so scary, isn't it? You could be working at a company thinking everything's fine, and all of a sudden they announce 5,000 people are going to get laid off. It's really really hard, and I think it's a tough question because especially with big companies, sometimes I feel like you're just a name on a spreadsheet sometimes, and that sounds super negative, but it really does feel random that way. However, the way to kind of I think this just goes back to not staying small. If you're that person that's presenting ideas, right? You're like if you're in a role that you like or in an industry that you like, you're feeling fulfilled, you're feeling passionate, and you're engaged, then you're putting forth ideas and not just putting them forth, but seeing them through. That person who is like or like actively collaborates because I don't care. We were just talking about it, right? Like small companies, big companies, like they want collaboration. Those are ways that people are like, first of all, they're going to know who you are. They're going to be like, oh, so and so, we worked on all these successful projects together, or that's the person that is happy to
Right.
have conversations, like civil conversations about maybe complex topics, and then also brings forth ideas and then sees them to fruition. That's I think the person that's going to escape for sure. If you really are not as engaged for whatever reason, or maybe you don't have the opportunity to, you're going to be at a disadvantage, and I think it's going to be tougher to escape potential layoffs.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, you mentioned a few times the importance of community and having a network, and then also like kind of having a like a backup plan, etc. So um, I know, before, changing the different companies, you always had some kind of gigs, etc. You always were looking into building your own brand, etc. So, can you tell how you are looking at your personal career with regards to kind of that digital, the footprints, the digital yourself, your brand, as well as, um, how are you building your brand, building your community, looking for those kind of opportunities out there, sort of like pivoting from role to role, having those side hustles, etc. So, and again, there are some people that they're on the job, but maybe they don't like what they're doing and they wanted to change it, but they are so concerned that, hey, if I'm changing this, I'm out of my insurance, I would not be able to pay my rent, etc. I'm so afraid. So, what can be a certain action plan in the near future for them to be able to uh, be safe with regards to, hey, I can be open to that opportunity and not be a concern about, about that security, sort of like that they all are looking at.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a really good question. And first of all, I would say that being liking what you do or finding something that you like to do, I think is very very critical. I'm not saying like, oh, this is what I was meant to do, or like follow your passion, because I don't think that always succeeds. But I think it's like it's good to have the side hustles, because or like the interest on the side, because interest can sometimes develop into side hustles, because that's if that's where your passion is. I think it's so funny because one of my coaches is he's big on, he's like, make your side hustle the hustle, because he's does not a fan of corporate America. So anyway, but he had great
Right.
advice, because I was like, well, think about like when's the right time to kind of switch, like how do you make your side hustle the main hustle? And his advice, and this is very prescriptive, but I definitely will share this because I think he was spot on. Was just like, you need to be killing it at your current job. You can't just check out. You need to still be performing there. But when your side hustle, like as it grows and grows and grows, if it gets to the point that it's the same or more consistently than what your regular job is, that's when you're safe to leave. And you're right about like, oh, I'm worried about insurance. And I asked him that. I'm like, yeah, what about those sort of things? He goes, insurance is not as expensive as everybody loves to say. And then when you're working this and you've already have all the pieces in place, like that side hustle can continue to grow. And it's a very personal decision. But he said that's really kind of like the way to do it. But again, don't stop working and then focus on this. You still need to
Oh
kill
yeah,
it at the day
yeah.
job and then work on that until it's a little that or higher.
That's a great point. I know a few people that I work with, and they have some kind of side project, uh, but they're not killing in their main job. They're not killing it. They just kind of doing it. They are kind of okay, but they're not killing it. And you always have that inside of you. Hey, hey, I'm fine. You guys pursuing whatever you guys want. It's, we're in a free country. Do whatever it's your free time, whatever. But I have this feeling of discomfort that you're not going anywhere with your current job. It's like you're there, but you're not actually putting everything that you have to actually start killing it. And that sort of like creates in the future that would create a certain decision making tree for me, right? It's like, hey, yes, he had that side job, but if I wanted the raise or promotion or providing people with some additional responsibilities, I won't go that for that person because I know that they're not fully invested into
Yep.
this, right? So just being fully invested, and if you are, then whatever you can have addition what you're doing as your aspiration, your hobby, your additional income, why not, right? That's absolutely if it powers you, why not? Hmm.
Yep.
Hmm.
Agreed.
Yeah. So I wanted to close up with some of the um, recent things or recent shift that you were saying in the market, tech, maybe in customer success. So anything that you currently are concerned about, or some things that you are start noticing on the market, some shifts, some updates, some conversations going on, something that you have on your mind that is interesting, for the listeners as well as again, tell me what's happening. What should I expect?
I don't know. Well, I don't have a crystal ball, but but yeah, you know what I'm really noticing a lot is like, I do a lot of networking because I always want to learn, and a lot of people reach out to me, especially people who are either transitioning into CS or transitioning into sales. It's funny. They're like, "Can I talk to you about you've done some stuff? Can we talk?" I'm like, oh, "Of course, let's have a chat." And so there's a lot more people like we were just talking about these layoffs that have happened, right? And I think the biggest shift that I've seen, there's the market's flooded with a lot of great professionals looking for roles, and the trend that I'm seeing, and maybe this was always the trend, but I think it's more important than ever, is to network. That is the way. Network your way to your next. And you should be put it this way: you should be building your network when you don't need it. Like right now, while you're employed, get that network strong. You know what I mean? You want to be, you're keeping those relationships. But if you didn't, okay, you're a little late. It's still okay. Reach out to people like people that are looking for roles. The number one thing I say is, listen. Especially when I was pivoting to CS, I said, okay, I started the top 10 companies. What are 10 companies that I'm interested in? I started there. And then I started looking at who are CSMs
Right.
there. And I was reaching out to CSMs to find out about their experience. Can we do a 10-minute coffee? I had like 20 virtual coffees in 1 month. 20. And actually even more than that. And that's what I tell people. I'm like, yeah, I was working it, Michael. I really was. Because I was just like, I wanted to understand. Because you know what I cared about? Everyone says they have a great culture. How do I know? Go talk to the person that works there and you'll know right away. And I had literally two questions. What's your experience in the company and what's your experience in the role? So I could learn a little bit more. And then I let them go. But I got a ton of referrals because I was just like super genuine. I was very authentic. I had a 10-minute, ask for 10 minutes. They offered to stay on longer. They offered to refer me. And so anyway, the biggest trend, and again, I think maybe it's already been in place, but networking is the way to find your role. If you don't have a role, and even if you do, maybe you're looking at that next hop, start leveraging your network, talking to people that you know and say, hey, how did you make your hop from this to that? That's how you get promoted, or how you promote yourself even, right? You can find those opportunities and be much more intentional about it. So if you're not doing it now, start doing it. And don't be that transactional person, because I've had it in my DMs. Hey, let's connect. And then can you write me a recommendation? I don't even know you. You know what I mean? Can you get me a job at NASDAQ? Don't know you. So don't do that. Be authentic, engage, put the time in, work the network like a pipeline, right? When you're in sales, you've got that pipeline of clients, touch points, authentic touch points, develop that relationship. And I think I'm telling you, that's right now the best way to get in the role.
That's a great close up. Cynthia, thank you so much for taking the time. It's been a pleasure and I had so much fun. So I appreciate you.
Me too. The pleasure is all mine. Thank you.